Hi, everyone. Welcome to day 3 of the PDG B-5 TA annual convening. This is the session on staff wellness. I can see some folks are still connecting to audio, so we'll just hang out another minute. I see lots of the same names that I've been seeing the past couple days in the social, emotional learning, mental health track, so that's great. I'm glad you're all here. Last few folks are connecting to audio. All right, I think we'll go ahead and get started. This is the session on staff wellness, a critical component of successful systems development efforts. A couple housekeeping pieces. First, this is how you change your name in Zoom. It would be great if everyone could make sure their name and their state are showing so that we know who you are and where you're from. I also know it's a convening and it's lunchtime and it's virtual and everyone's just tired of Zoom, but we love seeing smiling faces when we present. So if you feel good coming off camera, we would love it. If not, we understand that maybe you're still in your jammies eating lunch and we won't be upset. This is, after all, about all of our wellness. And if that's what you need today, go for it. We aren't going to do any breakout rooms, so this is not critical, but in case you want to call in from your phone, this is how you make sure your phone and you are linked together. Mostly important for breakout rooms, which we won't have today. Make sure you're on mute, which everyone looks good. Use the chat to ask questions and present ideas. There's a few of us who will be watching the chat as we go. So make sure you write anything you want in the chat. There'll be time at the end for questions and answers too, but if you don't want to forget, you can type it in the chat. So our first presentation today is going to be from Yanitza Alicea Torres. She's from the Puerto Rico Department of Family Affairs, where she currently works as the project director of Puerto Rico's PDG B-5 grant. She has many years experience supporting young children and families, including experiencing trauma, including domestic violence. And she's going to share her slides. So I'm going to stop sharing and let Yanitza take over when she's ready.
Can you see the presentation?
It's still the like slide view.
Okay.
There you go.
Now?
Yep, yeah. Looks great. Thanks.
Thank you. So thank you, Mandy. Like you said, my name is Yanitza Alicea. I'm from the Puerto Rico PDG B-5 grant. Today, I'm gonna talk to you about what are we doing in Puerto Rico to take care of for our workforce and promote wellness. Today, I have a co-presenter, Dr. Yvette Nava. She's our mental health consultant right here in PDG B-5. So I'm very excited. So I'm gonna say to you that English is my second language. So if you have trouble to understand me, please let me know in the chat. I'm trying my best to talk in English. So like we said, our presentation is Take Care to Care, strategies to promote social emotional well-being and mental health in early childhood care and education service providers and family engagement in Puerto Rico. What our objective this afternoon with a presentation of social emotional strategy through which we lead caregivers to social, emotional, and psychological educational roadmap to open the doors to the path of well-being and summarize the precarious situation in our country and to see how the PDG B-5 and the PDG B-5 project has developed psychoeducational workshops to provide parents, caregivers, and service providers with self-care and wellness tools. I'm presenting you the PDGB staff in Puerto Rico. We are a small team, but we do great things in Puerto Rico. We have our administrator, Roberto Carlos Pagan. We have a project coordinator, Emmanuel Berrios Alejandro. Myself, Yannick Salisa, project director, and well, mental health consultant, Dr. Yvette Navas. Our areas of need, the instability in our island that was already hurt by its economic problems, increased the desolation. Such devastation and based on the needs study conducted by PDG B-5 in 2020, which refers to poverty and problems of access to mental health programs, is the beginning for a program that aims at supporting social emotional areas by providing strategies to identify situations that help identify mental health risk situations and provide strategies for the well-being of families and service providers. Right here, I present you the 10 areas of need of the Puerto Rico needs assessment. If you can see in the presentation, the number 2 need in Puerto Rico is mental health and access to other mental health services. Access to children with special needs and childcare services. This is the project overview. The PDG B-5 project has developed psycho-educational workshops to provide parents, caregivers, and service providers with self-care and wellness tools. The PDG B-5 developed a virtual structure for early childhood community around in Puerto Rico with 175 childcare centers right here in Acuden. Care centers and a program based on a post-disaster trauma with the goal of working psychoeducationally through workshop for emotional recovery. We aim to develop a complete evidence-based program that will allow for understanding what trauma is, normalizing stress and trauma responses, developing skills for identifying emotions and feelings, and fostering healthy social connection, as well as an appropriate self-care process. Also, the importance to create a database that provides us information to develop an ongoing quality program. That's a key part right here in Puerto Rico. We had to develop an integrated data system. So now I'm gonna right back with Dr. Yvette Navas.
Hello, everybody. I'm very glad to be here. Thank you, Janitza, for this invitation. And I'm gonna do a snapshot here about the concepts in terms of how we could pull these concepts together to do our program. The first concept that we take in consideration was a social and emotional development. And for us, it's very important to define each one of them. Social emotional development means the capacity of a child develops between birth and 5 years of age to form close and secure relationships with adults and peers, experience, regulate, and express feelings in socially and culturally appropriate way, explore his or her environment, and learn. All these facets of social emotional development take place in a context of the family, community, and culture. The other concept was very important, mental health. Mental health includes our emotional and physiological and social well-being. It affects how we think, feel, and act. It also helps to determine how we handle stress, relate to others, and make choices. Mental health is important at every stage of life, from childhood, adolescent, through adulthood. Thank you, Janitza, the other one. For us also was very important to go and define how we're gonna work with compassion fatigue and do some differentiation in terms of other concepts such as burnout. Compassion fatigue is referred to people whose professions lead to prolonged exposure to other people's situations, such as trauma, can be vulnerable to compassion fatigue. Also, known as a secondary or vicarious trauma, they can experience acute symptoms that put their physical and mental health at risk, making them worried or even uncaring. It's different from burnout that is related to feeling drained from everyday stressors like work or child training as a result of that burnout. Compassion fatigue is a strain of feeling for another person. So we talk also about resilience. That's a very important key concept to develop this project. In terms of us, we know that resilience comes from a field of engineering, but from the psychology expert, resilience is the psychological quality that allows some people to knock down bad adversities of life and come back at least as strong as before, rather than letting difficult situations or trauma events failure overcome them and drain their resolve. Highly resilient people find a way to change course, emotionally heal, and continue moving towards their goals. So based on this concept, we developed a program, and the workforce training program, Bread Practice, for us was to promote a holistic wellness. Our program brings together a series of orientation and educational workshops to strengthen mental health of teachers, assistants, parents, and children. The program of emotional recovery, we call it care for care. So we have to care ourselves, then to care others. We have to work to educate, orient, and provide skills in areas of identify situations that may affect the mental health and developing skills that will strengthen the foundations of social and emotional program, including stress management, which is being informed in trauma-informed and developing a pathway of wellness. Thank you, Janitza. From there, as a team, we develop strategies based on emotional recovery. So we want all of these being developed, focused in trauma. And at the same time, we would like to do that path to well-being. So seeing as a mental health and wellness as a center, we developed a series of different workshops, such mental health first aid, psychological recovery, trauma management techniques, emotion management, compassion fatigue, and resilience. We did it through online sessions and webinars. Janitza? And here I'm gonna let Janitza, that is going to do an activity with you to see how they could work.
Thank you, Yvette. So
We're ready for
Titus,
the poll, Titus.
yes. We want to know what are your states or your PDG B-5 projects are doing to impact the early childhood workforce.
So Janitza, we have that pool to see what our audience is doing. Do you think that we can have those results?
I think that they are doing the same that we are doing. We have doing virtual workshops. I think that with this COVID pandemic, we have to move to virtual the last workshops and sessions to provide services for our workforce. Legal material, informative.
You want to go to the next poll?
Yes. The second question we have for you is what strategies will you like your state or project provide in order to work on early childhood workforce wellness?
Janitza, what we have, do you think that, do you have that information already?
No, I think,
Let's see how the audience is doing with that.
yes. I think with 82%, they want to do workforce incentives. I think that's very important.
Ah, definitely, it is.
And now with the incentive with ARPA and other funds, I think the states are going to develop new incentive for the workforce. Right here in Puerto Rico, we are planning to do a series of incentives for our workforce.
Definitely, to support all the situation that we've been passing through. We are seeing how the people needs more and more this kind of support. And I think it is not just one thing. We have to do it together and as a program that helps us a lot to impact this workforce in PDG. See, that incentives tools, it is something that we have to work on it. I think that we can continue, Janitza.
Yes. So now you tell us, what are you trying to do in your states with your workforce? Now I'm gonna tell you what are we doing in Puerto Rico with our workforce.
Let's see what we have in the next slide. So here we have a snapshot about the things that we are been doing in our project. This is a big effort of the entire team doing alliances and knocking doors with everyone that could help us to build this project. One of the things that we really enjoy, and I think that the people like, was the virtual conversation that we have here in the prevention of maltreatment. In that particular conversatory, leaders of different agencies speak out about how they were dealing with this situation in terms of COVID and all the natural disaster, and how they are reinventing and how they are doing new techniques to knock the doors of our parents and to also the workers. Also, as we presented before, This was a webinars about managing stress and well-being, also recognizing my emotions. Another one that a lot of people like a lot was a mindfulness webinar and the elements of the resilience as well. Another one that was for prevention of sexual abuse and was the body, my body is my treasure. As a part of our program, we were able to do an alliance with the South Carolina Department of Psychiatry and Psychology, and we contact Dr. Orengo, who was able to deliver to us different webinars about trauma, the concepts of trauma, the psychological recuperation, and with a lot of skills that we can develop passing through these difficult times. Also, the other one that the people like a lot, and we are planning to continue giving this type of seminars, was first aid and psychological services. The next one, Janissa. Here we have different pictures of the seminars that we've been doing during this year. And the next one was a certification of mental health. Janissa, I think that you can enter in that.
Thank you, Beth. This certification provides techniques for how to help someone experiencing a mental health or substance abuse crisis. You learn risk factors and warning signs for mental illness and addiction concerns, a strategy for how to help someone in both crisis and non-crisis situations, and where to turn for help. One-day training consists in an 8-hour certification. We had the opportunity to offer this certification to 68 early childhood service providers from centers who benefit from the activity and obtain their certification, which lasts for a period of 3 years. In this certification, 90.3% of those who participate in the certification mentioned that they were satisfied. This certification was face-to-face, not virtual. This is a snapshot of the activities that we provide the mental health certification. The service providers were happy about this certification because they were experiencing situations in the childcare centers, and they are the first responders in the childcare settings and working with parents and working with children.
So here, I think that we have a summary about trauma management techniques and what we did with this workshop. Through the Medical University of South California, they shared with us Trauma 101. This workshop will learn that what trauma is in children, adolescents, and how to identify and refer students with trauma-appropriate mental health services, effective and ineffective coping strategies. Also, they learn how to communicate this information simply and effectively through talk to teachers and social personnel for the purpose of creating trauma-informed schools. That is part of the things that we are pursuing. During that period of time, we provide 288 early childhood services to the providers. The next one. In terms of psychological recovery workshops, this workshop provides a guidance of how to respond to the events, disaster, violence, and terrorism using the psychological recovery school interventions. It contains a free manual that includes detailed information on each of the 6 basic skills and a company of handouts of survivors. Psychological first aid workshop was an evidence-based modular approach that aimed at helping children, adolescents, and adults and families to cope with that immediate disaster acts of any kind of trauma, including terrorism. 421 early childhood services was provided in that particular area of psychological first aid and evidence-based modular approach.
And like Yvette said, we do other workshops with very different topics, and we have a great amount of participation of our service providers from child care centers, Head Start, Early Head Start, and private child care centers. We have the topic of wellness and stress management, learning about autism. This was in April. And we have a clinical psychologist who provide this webinar. We have a webinar about sexual abuse prevention, essential elements for early childhood resiliency, managing emotion with art strategies. This was one of the, we have the most participation with 470 service providers and elements of preschool communication. This is a clip. I don't know if functioning, a clip with one of the webinars that we have. This was a clinical psychologist, and he was very resourceful in this webinar. So he used a strategy of art to maintain our audience inspired to do something different in this webinar.
That's awesome.
It's a clip. It was like a coaching.
The people are asking again for that.
We can't hear it. You need to.
They can hear. Oh, okay, sorry. He was giving a motivational speech to the service provider about how to do things involving arts and promoting the well-being of the service provider. So like Yvette said, you have to take care of yourself first to take care of others. And we are working with service providers that provide that direct service with children, and they are affected with all of this situation right here in Puerto Rico. So we have to take care of them to take care of our population.
Definitely. And we are trying to expand that area also to parents that need a lot of pampering or techniques to help them in the process on this difficult process that we are passing through.
Yes. So other strategy that we use with service providers and parents is we develop a wellness virtual cafe in Spanish. So we present with our virtual coffees in which already impact more than 800 service providers and parents since April. This initiative began in April and aims to connect the community of parents of child care Head Start, Early Head Start, and private care centers with experts on topics relevant to the interest and current issue. PDG-B-5 provides different venues for training and education for parents and teachers. One of the topics that we discussed in this virtual cafe was emotion management, social emotional development, positive discipline, stress management, abuse, and trauma prevention, among other topics. This is our snapshot of the promotions of we have with the virtual coffee. We have a really good group of experts that are voluntary doing this with us every month, and we try to bring experts in different topics to have a relaxed conversation with coffee. Like right in Puerto Rico, we always are drinking coffee, so that's very important.
Yes, the idea is that the people could feel like peaceful and relaxed, talking about those things that are sometimes very difficult to talk about, but with experts. So they could have from the first hand the strategies that could help them in the development of the child, or to help them as their parents, also from themselves.
Mm-hmm. So PDG-5 have a good amount of local collaboration with other nonprofit organizations and agencies like United Way, like the Department of Recreation and Sports, the American Academy of Pedagogy, the universities in Puerto Rico, the nonprofit like Instituto de Desarrollo de la Juventud, who aims to end the poverty, the childhood poverty in Puerto Rico, and the other universities. In this collaboration, we have an alliance with the staff of United Way that they will conducting training concerning developmental screening tests for children from childcare program providers. We have also with the Department of Health of Pediatric Preventive Service guideline to state the screening tests that should be administered at the preventive measures. This is a collage of the activities that we are doing face-to-face, that we are training our service provider in using the ISQ and ISQ
ASQ.
Yes, that instrument to use in the childcare settings.
Yes, it's a screening that help us in that process.
In this workshop with the United Way from Puerto Rico, we include topics like reading studies for children, with virtual workshop for pregnant women, and healthy development of pregnancy, breastfeeding, and other topics like teamwork, collaborating with families, health safety in the center, and atmospheric events and other emergencies. We have a collaborative agreement with the Inter-American University of Puerto Rico. Through this agreement, we were able to provide the workforce with several workshops focused on wellness. We use mindfulness, art therapy, music therapy to provide our workforce with other strategies to manage stress and promote well-being. This was facilitated with social work interns at master levels from the university.
So here we have dialogues that we develop for the professionals and providers to discuss early childhood care issues. We work with the experts in different areas, trying to find solutions for the centers opening for health and COVID management, emergency management, preschool childcare management, and early childhood mental health. The thing that we do here is try to get everybody together and find out different alternatives that how we can do better, because we think that in collaboration, everything could be easier and smoother. Okay. Also, we do a virtual conversation in prevention of maltreatment from a comprehensive early childhood service delivery approach using the same strategy. Here we impact 340 services providers, trying to talk a little bit about the things that we can do in terms of childhood prevention, in terms of maltreatment. The other one, Janissa, I think you could talk here.
Yes, we're finishing. This is our outcome data and results. As a result, we identify and prioritize many strategies to engage parents, caregivers, and early childhood workforce to develop a mental health well-being using strategies that result effective. So they attended wellness and self-care trainings and activity. So in the left, that's our goal.
Definitely.
On the right, that's what we accomplished in a period from February 2021 to September 2021. So, and we are not complete. So what's coming next for Puerto Rico and the PDG-5? We will doing workshops with new topics. We want on-site support. We would like to develop a certification. We want to bring scholarship to complete the credential development associate and give incentives to our workforce. So that's from our part right here in Puerto Rico. And now I will leave you with Maria Vasquez, who will be presenting important information about equality. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Yanitza. I'm getting your slides right now, Maria.
Good afternoon, all. Can you hear me right? Can you see me right?
Yes.
Sure. Awesome. Well, good afternoon, all. My name is Maria Eugenia Vasquez Betancourt. It's my pleasure to be here with you all today. And on behalf of the National Center on Health, Behavioral Health and Safety, as part of the partnership with the Office of Head Start. Next slide, please. I'm going to be calling out Mandy, my colleague, to continue to run the slides for me. And I'm going to just excuse myself in advance if something happens with the technology today. It's raining really hard in Puerto Rico, and I'm working from home, and sometimes the power goes off when it rains really hard. But no worries, if that happens, I have a few colleagues backstage that will continue running slides and continue with the script that I have prepared for you all today. So let's start with this great message from Audre Lorde. Caring for myself is not self-indulgence. It is self-preservation. As Janitza and Dr. Navas, I just say that in Spanish, I'm sorry. Dr. Navas was mentioning the importance of part of PDG B-5 Puerto Rico is they're working really hard and really making a lot of great efforts of staff wellness, right? And this is something important that we need to keep as a first line of our conversation when working as directors or leaders in our programs. Because we need, as also, as Dr. Navas was mentioning, and Janitza, caring for myself is this the best, it's the first thing we should do in order to just provide to others, right? You cannot pour from an empty cup, as I said. Next slide, please, Mandy. In this session of staff wellness in the context of advanced equity and a critical component of successful systems, I will have the opportunity to discuss some points. I'm sorry, I missed the other points from the slide before, Mandy. Yes, that one, thank you. First of all, I want to talk a little bit to you about the importance of focusing on self-care in the context of equity. I want to explain a little bit here about equity as working definition within and across all early childhood national centers. I want to talk to you about creating safe spaces as part of self-care, specifically when talking about equity. Also, I want to talk about effective well-being strategies that are tailored to an organization values and visions. I want to give you some strategies on how to create safe spaces as part of self-care when talking about equity. And the last but not less important, the importance to create an ongoing educational process to build DEI, right? Diversity, equity, and inclusion. Now, please, next slide, Mandy. I'm sorry. I gotta say, first of all, that the importance of focusing on self-care in context of equity is because working on equity can be incredibly fulfilling, but it can also be physically and mentally exhausting. This type of work requires a high level of empathy, emotional engagement, and self-reflection. It's a work that we need to do starting by ourselves. We need to have self-reflection before we can start working with this topic. Being able to getting everybody in a room and be able to have these conversations that sometimes, for not saying most of the times, can be really difficult, even uncomfortable, even can be traumatic for others. Next slide, please. I'm sorry, my English. So here, how we can just maybe empathize and recognize those emotions when talking about equity, when talking about race, racism. Let's start this session by thinking about an example from our own lives. Thinking about maybe a situation that a conversation that you had recently, or that you can remember that you had in person, or maybe a text or a tweet that you could that you posted in social media with the content of race, of equity, of racism. Maybe with a close friend that you have this conversation with, or maybe with not that close friend, and think about what happened. How do you respond to this conversation comments? And think about, will you do any different? Think about, take a moment, take a few seconds to try to transport yourself to that specific moment, that specific conversation, if you had it in any time in your life before. I'm giving this example and giving this chance for you all to think deeply and giving you an example in your mind as a way to help you connect to this material that I'm going to be talking about today. We are all challenged in one way or another in conversation on race, racism, and equity or inequity, health disparities. We're challenged in other topics as well, of course, but nevertheless, because we need to build our own capacity to manage our own emotions. Like sometimes, for example, we recognize ourselves that sometimes we may say things that we don't want to do, we don't want to say, we do things that we don't want to do, and we just respond or react immediately because of our formation, because of our cultural or culture or how we were raised. And this is why I mentioned before the importance of self-reflection, of work, to work on ourselves before having these conversations of racism or inequity. As leaders, you are the ones that are supporting those directly working with you, working with children, working with families, even your colleagues, your working area, your working space. So it is important to understand that you too are not exempt from being challenged in conversations, or I want to say uncomfortable or uncomfortable conversations, like it can be racism, inequity, when just race, right? Also, you may want to share strategies sometimes with your colleagues and with those working with families to navigate difficult conversations. You would like to have the time to maybe sit in a table and discuss, for instance, maybe using this time of a hot coffee office, coffee time. Like for instance, PDG Puerto Rico are working with to have this comfortable, sometimes not that comfortable conversations. It can be a really nice space to be open and to be willing to have this process of parallel thinking. As I said before, you cannot give what you don't have, or you don't have, or that you don't have been given. Right. Next slide, please. I'm just running my slides in my computer. Thank you, Mandy. So let's have the definition of equity working, equity as a working definition. Within and all across all early childhood and national centers, equity means fair and just treatment to all children, families, and those who support them. Equity enables everyone to achieve their full potential. Equity promotes consistent, systemic, and equitable access to comprehensive services and systems for everyone, including people who are African American, Black, Latino, Hispanic, Indigenous, American Indian, Alaska Native, Asian American, Pacific Islander, or other people of color, member of religious minorities, people who are LGBTQ and plus, people with disabilities, people who live in rural areas, and people adversely affected by persistent poverty or other forms of inequity. Next slide, please. With this definition being said, it's important to hold the collective accountable. Organizations need to make learning about anti-racism even mandatory, I will say. Learning should be an ongoing, embedded in the learning philosophy. In particular, organizations should prioritize on self-development, including self-education, self-awareness, promotion, self-inquiry, and personal change. Learning how to respond to interpersonal and group issues, for example, to be able to respond to bias comments, to be able to learn to teach how to address inequitable group dynamics and creating this culturally inclusive work and learning groups. Also, to fostering capacity to create, to critically analyze, implement, or advocate for equitable and inclusive organizational norms, like policies and practices. Also, I may say creating societal change by effectively collaborating with others to foster social justice. Next slide, please. So how we can create this safe space as part of self-care? We shall start by maybe promoting these difficult conversations, right? Promote this by creating safe spaces, like I mentioned before, the coffee time, for people of color and white people to acknowledge the emotional toll bias, for people to acknowledge the discrimination and the racism they have on people of color, and to engage in honest conversations, learning and provide a space of healing. It is recommended that when the groups come together, first of all, establish ground rules at the onset of conversation. This definitely will help ameliorate the concerns that both groups may have about, like, maybe saying the wrong thing, or right, or even body expression, body language. Next slide, please. For instance, I have here some strategies to calm yourself and make awareness. So during these conversations, during this maybe coffee table or coffee time that you will like to have a conversation about equity, racism, let's try to teach ourselves to recognize the signs of our body, and to recognize how these conversations make us feel, how these conversations bring signs of distress. For some, these conversations can trigger even past traumas, right? So think about the last difficult conversation you had in person or online, as I tried to put you in that situation or that time before the beginning of a conversation today. How do you feel? And where do you feel it in your body? Like you felt your ear, or just your ears were just really hot, you start to having a headache, your chest, your heart was pounding, your stomach cramped a little bit. So how your body manifests these certain situations of difficult conversations. Feelings manifest differently. So it is important to recognize and bring this awareness of these specific situations and how you're feeling and how your body respond to these situations. Knowing where you feel your feelings can help to create maybe a plan of care that aligns and help you and to deal with the situation. For example, sometimes you just want to just stand up and run out of the room and don't talk no more. So maybe you can do that, but only a little bit polite. Just take your time. If you feel that it's really uncomfortable for you, the conversation, just pause for a moment, take a break. Just excuse yourself for a second, go have a drink of water, tea, just that, a drink of water, tea, coffee, not a drink, not a cocktail. Go for a walk, just text somebody else, just take a break and engage again and come back again and engage the conversation. And some strategies to respond, sometimes when you have already established strategies to respond instead of react, it will just help you to continue these conversations that are really important and critical these times. Well, it's been forever, but yeah, specifically now that we're being able to be more open about talking about this topic. I think about now or later strategies needed to be used afterwards, as sometimes long after difficult conversations were bothered. If you know where you're feeling, what you feel, or what's your feelings and what you feel, you can just tailor your strategies and likely be more effective in this kind of like trial and error, but more, do better. Remember that in order to think about a problem solving, must need to be in regulated state. This is something that we usually teach children in early childhood education, and regulate emotions. And so same thing goes for adults. We try to regulate a state of mind and to be more executive state. That is where we access our brilliance and can decide how to respond to a challenging conversation or person or situation. I want to highlight a few more strategies that I for managing emotions related to difficult conversations that can be used after a difficult conversation. Next slide, please, Mandy. Okay. Let's recap a little bit about what was just mentioned, some strategies. Yeah, that's one is good. Thank you, Mandy. For instance, try to, something that works for me a lot and help also some colleagues in the beginning of difficult conversations, something happened and with the teamwork, is the importance of awareness, right? That was the beginning, the first one, recognition that I presented in the slide before. So one of the activities can be like integrate this saying, I am emotional, I am a survival, I am, recognize who you are and activate those emotional states. And think to yourself and repeat yourself and make awareness of how you feel. I feel. What specifically do you feel? Where do you feel it? The other one is I calm. Choose to do something and then something else as needed, right? Like maybe just take a break, make a pause, take a deep breath, count until 10, and then I solve. After calming yourself down, then you can just feel ready to go back to the conversation. So that will be I am, I feel, I calm, and I solve. Next slide, please, Mandy. I mentioned before some ground rules agreements that you can have before having these difficult conversations as a group. Here, I'm going to give you some examples of those ground rules that you can establish, and feel free and confident to bring that to the table. Will make a difference at the end of the day, and you will have a richer conversation at the end of the day. This is also for a better support system, safe, secure relationships, and ways to express feelings, fears, beliefs, concerns. For example, one of them can be speak from your own experience. Use I statements and don't speak for interpret what others was saying, right? Sometimes we call ourselves and no, I hear that this, no, this is my experience. Acknowledge that. Also, another rule that you can put down on the table is seek understanding. You can put all these rules in a paper. I believe you will have a copy of this presentation. You can also share with your colleagues all these rules. And the other one is seek understanding. When somebody is negatively impacted by something that was said, try to put aside your own judgments, biases, viewpoints, and even the intention of the speaker, and listen to the harm that was felt. Try to be sensitive and empathic with the feelings of others. The other one is prepare to be open, vulnerable, and little uncomfortable. As I call it several times, this can be uncomfortable conversations, right? So I said that we won't always say the right thing. By willing to make and accept our own and others' mistakes, participates to the fullest on your ability, and remember that this is a community of growth, and this community of growth depends on the inclusion of everybody individually, every individually voice. So the next one, it will be move up and move up. That has been called as if for instance, if you're someone who tends to not speak a lot, please try to do the contrary. Please try to speak more. Try to make your voice being heard. If you tend to speak a lot, please try to identify that and move up into a role of listening more. Listening and try to internalize that. This is a twist on the more commonly heard step up, step back. So the up confirms that both experiences. Growth is happening. So you don't go back by learning to be better listeners. Saying like move instead of step recognizes that not everyone can step, right? So try to listen actively. The other one is repeat back if necessary. Sometimes we just react, right? And that's some of the strategies that we little by little will learn. And if you just fail to react, maybe it was because you didn't hear right, or you didn't hear the right message. So try to repeat back if necessary, seek clarification, and make sure that you're understanding the speaker correctly before responding. Try to put your own assumptions and viewpoints aside, because that it can just make a conflict coming to the table. So if you feel like you didn't understand right, just seek clarification. Engage in dialogue, not debate. Try to have a dialogue and open-ended. And shared learning is the goal, not winning an argument. This is an open space. And I have a dog that wants to trespass my door. I'm sorry for that. The noisy thing in the background. Engage in dialogue, not debate. Try to have these open conversations and dialogue, not to be afraid to respectfully challenge one another, but try to bring all the comments respectfully by asking questions, by focus on ideas and refrain the personal attacks. Challenge statements rather than the person who said it. Stay open to be challenged also, because that can happen too, and that will take you to the uncomfortable place, but it needs to be sometimes like that to be able to be open and honest to yourself and to others. As I mentioned before, also part of the taking care of yourself is pause, right? It's so important to pause and take a deep breath or count to 10 before responding to strong emotions or ideas. Not everyone comes from the same place you come, so just be willing to be open, listen actively, engage dialogue, not debate, and pause whenever you need it. Be conscious of your body language and nonverbal responses. Sometimes I may talk about myself. I make a lot of gestures and facial gestures specifically, and sometimes I roll up my eyes. I don't have that poker face, and that's something that I need to work with. I gotta be honest. And mostly for difficult conversations, sometimes you react spontaneously, and it can be harmful for others. So try to work your breathing exercise to pause and be conscious about your body language and nonverbal responses, so you can prompt to attendees to take time to learn from you as well. Also, one strategy that a colleague present in back in an institute that we were another training that we're presenting, she opened a conversation about prompting attendees to take a piece of paper and during the presentation of equity and racism, for attendees to write down their emotions and their feelings. And then at the end of the conversation of the training, she was willing to give a chance, an open mic and open chat for people to reflect on those emotions when they were arised, when they were talking for a specific topics that were really sensitive to others. So there's a few strategies there that you may be able to use. So in a table exercise and to have the safe place. Next slide, please. I mentioned before some self-regulation plan. This is more for promote in your programs, in your center, Head Start programs, Child Care Center, to promote self-regulation in difficult conversations, to create a self-regulation plan that is helpful activity. You can put a poster down. You can maybe make a slide if it's virtual about this exercise. Practice this with your coworkers, with your staff, right? Even with families, when you have a chance to have in-person meetings with families, and maybe these topics arise, you can have the chance to have this option of for them to create their own regulation plan. Some may have some strategies, some may know already before time how to make a pause and just breathe deeply and just take a break and get out of the table and get out of the meeting. But sometimes it's good to promote this self-regulation plan as a plan for people, coworkers, to be able to use these tools and be able to empathize, having the plan in step 1 and step 2, and more important for yourself, for your own self, right? For instance, also this plan can be focused on balance, or maybe sometimes we don't only have difficult conversation about equity, racism. We may have a difficult conversation about a problem of use and abuse of alcohol and drugs, and those self-regulation plan or strategies can also be really helpful to have those difficult conversations. Next slide, please. Here in this slide, I'm sharing with you all some resources. First of all, the first one is pointed out is culture, diversity, inclusion, and equity, a spotlight on human resources system. This link, Mandy, am I right? This is going to be able to all attendees to have these slides or these resources?
Yeah, they should already be in Cvent.
Awesome, perfect. Thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you for the clarification. So also in that easy event, you have the other resource that I want to highlight here is the equity working definition, and that you can look up that one in eClick. The Head Start Health podcast hosted by Neil Horan, Dr. Neil Noren, and also the presenter Eva Marie Chivers, who's the founder of executive director of Indigo Cultural Center in Phoenix, Arizona. Also, you have here, I'm sharing with you also the ECLKC, or known as eClick website, specifically in promoting staff well-being, including links and tip sheets and trainings and webinars and videos on promoting staff wellness that you can share with others, other colleagues, and other programs or other centers. Next slide, please. Here, this was, and I'm going I'm going to walk you through the health equity framework that's been falls into the Head Start concepts, supporting activities, programs, and the impact of each on health equity. One thing that Janitza in the beginning mentioned in her presentation was the main concern on PDG B-5 Puerto Rico is the mental health and health access disparities that Puerto Rico has. And this framework also present that as part of what Head Start frameworks falls in. It includes staff wellness, cognitive and social emotional wellness, health educational and promotion, coordinated care, connection to resources, family support, advocacy, and family engagement. You can find this in a click and ECLKC website as well. Next slide, please. This one is the other part of this framework. And you can see here and how Head Start placed the health input and how it transformed the health impact. Here, this framework states that children's family have access to health resources, are able to capitalize on their cultural and community strength, and are equipped with skills and navigate systemic barriers to health, which is one of what Janice was mentioning, right? The health access disparities. This shows like Head Start is like a bridge, or it helps to access or try to make things easier for families, and to help advance the national health equality agenda. Next slide, please. Here, I also mentioned in the slide the other podcasts that you can find in Head Start Heals campaign on eClick and ECLKC website. I mentioned before talking about sensitive conversations with families. That was with Dr. Neil Harwin, but also you may find Talking to Children About Race podcast. You can listen to that. You can read the transcript as well on eClick. You can print it out if it's easier for you to read it out from a hard copy. Also, you have a topic of coping with grief and loss. This COVID season or this COVID situation has bring us a lot of loss, immediate families or friends, and sometimes important to help children to understand that and help them cope with grief and loss. So you have there a really good strategy, and not also for children, but also for staff members. So you can also have here podcasts about sensitive conversation with families, trauma and resilience, mental health, planning for disaster and trauma, and the one that I mentioned in the beginning, or role in equity. And as leaders and as a team player, that's also something that I want to share, that I want to mention with you all before I close my session in today's presentation. Just keep in mind, or just reflect on what you're doing, or what's your role in this equitable and race conversations or work. What's your role on a daily basis? Keep that in mind and reflect on it. Next slide, please. Well, you keep in mind that question. You can also share any answer into any of these My Peers communities. If you're not familiar with My Peers is a social network like Facebook or Instagram, but it's specifically created for early childhood professionals. You can find there different communities that you can request to be part of, and you can share in My Peers network. You can share any questions, any concern. You can share even some experiences or any activities that you may have for staff wellness, for mental health. We have here the first logo, if I'm not mistaken, everybody is giving a high five, is staff wellness community. We have a PDG, is it PDG B-5, Mandy, the third one? Oh, It just changed. We have mental health consultation. We have Hablamos en Español, which is Spanish-speaking community. We have home visiting community. That even though that you don't work, you don't work directly with those certain communities, you may be interested in having more information about what's going on, what they're doing, and maybe learn some strategies or share strategies with the community. And so I want to just make clarification that my peers network and eClick is different. eClick is early childhood. I need to read this. Early childhood learning and knowledge center. So it's official information from the Office of Head Start. So it's official information that we screen before anything is posted. And My Peers is a social platform that you can share anything and feel as a safe place for you to share. There's also in My Peers My Peers network. You have even an inbox tool that you can use, like a messenger for Facebook. So you can chat with other colleagues and you can request information in private if you prefer. So this is all my end, my part. I hope you enjoyed you enjoy all the information that I provided. It wasn't a conversation, but still you have the chat. If you have any question you want to bring to the table, or even if we're a pretty small group, if you want to open your mic and ask me any question about the topics that I've just presented here, feel free to do so.
Yeah, thank you, Maria. So I think we've got some time left, and I would love to hear. I've been sitting here taking this opportunity to really think about the things that Maria brought up for us. So if anyone has anything they want to share, any questions on the work from Puerto Rico that got shared, anything you'd like to share on something you're working on in your state, we do have a pretty small group, so we can really take advantage of some chat time together. Thing with virtual meetings is you got to be okay with this little bit of quiet while someone figures out how to unmute.
Hope my dog didn't disturb
Right.
much my conversation on my working from home. It's kind of hard sometimes. Yes, Pamela, thank you for that. It's important to advance this work. It's really valuable.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
So if you weren't already full of resources, here's a reminder. Oh, I'm not sharing it as a slideshow. Here's a reminder about the PDG B-5 TA Center, where you'll find additional information on lots of the topics we talked about today. And here is the Research Connections website, where you'll find all kinds of additional great resources. You could look for information on both equity and social emotional development. There is also a equity track at this convening. And so if this sparked more questions or ideas for you, you can always go on to CVent, the event platform, and look through the resources from those sessions that happened this week. I'll give us back some time if no one has any thoughts or questions.
I have one question.
Good.
Right, it's kind of unfair for me to ask a question. I'm also with the PDG Birth to 5 TA Center, but I was just wondering, for all the presenters, if you kind of, when you're working directly with practitioners, because I think a lot of you do, if you explicitly kind of teach about self-care for practitioners, for teachers and adults who work with kids, sort of with the intention of them teaching kids about these strategies also. Just wondering about that.
I mean, we talked about it during one of our prep sessions for this call, right? We talked about my 4-year-old and how she's learning how to put her hand right here and take some deep breaths when she's feeling big feelings.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I remember that. And
Oh, you went on mute, Mary.
yeah, I'm sorry. That reminds me, my daughter, this weekend, I do jewelry with sea glasses. So I was at the beach picking out sea glasses to make some jewelry for Christmas gifts. and I was looking for a red one. I was just frustrated. I was like, oh my goodness, where am I going to find a red one? They're rare. They're really rare. And my daughter hold my hand. Mama, look at me. You need to learn, have patience. You need to be patient. Okay. It's like, oh my God, I'm teaching you well. Because sometimes you just give it for granted as things that you mention in your house or with children in the classroom. Sometimes you don't think the children even listen, right? How to regulate or manage their emotions. And they're just right there. Elephant.
I think it's
Okay,
very important to listen about what the people have to say and walk with them during that period, because as you say, also Maria and Janitza, every emotion, the people feel it differently. So you have to listen carefully and help them to develop the strategy to manage that. When the people, I think, to feel that others are listening about what they have to say, they start to feel better. But it is not just that particular moment. We have to help them to walk through that period of time. And because of that, I think that we would like to do this as a program, and it's not just as a seminar or webinars. We would like more than that. We would like to do this as a part of your day, to develop those strategies in terms that you can use this as a part of your, maybe could say, transformation. Maybe we say with techniques that you can use anywhere, any place, as you say, Maria. Listen to your feelings, walk and feel it, and then breathe and try to realize the strategies that you can develop. I don't know. Maybe.
Okay, well, I think we'll call it a wrap for the day. If no one has anything else. I hope you all join us for the plenary this afternoon. It's a state response panel, so it should be great to hear from other states, another good place to have some conversations. And let us know if you have any questions. And super thank you to all of our presenters. We had no technical issues. It all went
Oh my
smooth.
goodness, yes, thank you. Thank you
Yes.
for the technical assistance as well. Thank you, Beth. Great job, PDG Puerto Rico. You're doing great.
Yes, great job.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Mandy. Bye.
Yes, it was so great to meet you and to learn about your great work.
Thank you.
Thank you
all
for
your support.
everything.
Yeah, I'm glad we had the chance to do this together.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye.
Nice to meet you. Bye.
You too. All right, Titus, I'm gonna leave. All right. Thanks for everything. See you tomorrow.